go through the reality of being a migrant as much as they go through the reality of being a woman in any society is very different to the way that others experience this, that men experience this. So we want to pay particular attention to that. And we also want to make sure that we raise awareness about how important it is to look at the specificity of women's needs within the migration context, but also within the global context that we are going through right now, which is the pandemic context as well. COVID has highlighted how much women can live in a very fragile state, and how impacted they can be by any crisis. And we are actually trying to map the specific needs so that we make sure that gender equality, women empowerment remain a very high political agenda for the constituency of local governments, but also for the partners that work with us around this topic. This is why we are also very happy that we have joining us not only cities that are dealing with these realities and that would need to be the first respondents to these needs, but also other institutions like CSOs, academia, and international organizations. We thought that the way to tackle this topic that many have been covering, and I am really delighted that the United Nations is with us, UN Women is with us, because we know we have been, they have been looking at this topic specifically, but maybe not so much with the urban lens, with the local lens. And we would like to feed into that lens together, and hopefully influence the type of actions that we are going to be doing in the future. So the objective of this gathering is humble. It's ambitious, but at the same time very humble. We need to put our heads together. We need to exchange real practices, map what we consider our priorities, but then hopefully open the path for a strong joint action. We realize we will be narrowed to the migration agenda that we share together, but we want it to be also a very strong input for our gender equality agenda and for the equality agenda in general. We feel unless we protect those that are weakest in our society, it is impossible for our societies to protect anyone. And this pandemic has actually allowed us to see this more clearly. So if there is a migrant, a woman migrant that is suffering and highly at risk, our full society is at risk. So don't consider this a thematic scope. It is a cross-cutting issue that we need to deal with. Now, you are facing today a short session, so we need to be very mindful of time, a very interactive session. We want to pick your brains as much as we can. You're going to be going through breakout sessions. And then after all of that, we hope to come back with some concrete proposals for the program that we are managing, but also for the other activities. For UCLG, but also for the other partners that are involved in this gathering. I am very grateful for the support that INCPD is always giving to us, for the partnership and the trust that we have developed, that hopefully is going to help us enlarge this agenda. Of course, the trust that donors like the European Union and the Swiss government are putting on this file, I think it's a very strong message to the international community that we need, that we desperately need. Because while we are all here sharing this very open idea of how natural migration is to be treated in our daily lives, The first reactions of our governments in the time of pandemic has been to close borders. To close borders even there where they don't exist, even between cities, even between regions in a certain country. So our narrative is being challenged. And I think this also is an important aspect that we need to consider when mapping the needs of women in this context. I really hope that we can team up with other parts of our network, like the Committee on on Social Inclusion and Human Rights, that is gathering the champions around this file of inclusion. So I think we have the right ingredients. I hope you enjoy the session, and I hope that we get many interesting things out of it. I hope to be here with you as much as I can. Please count on us, on United Cities and local governments, to continue facilitating this exchange, but we can only do it with you. So we very much count to you with oh my God, I always say this name wrong and I don't find it written anywhere. ICMPD. And I see Lamin there looking at me saying, Emilia, how can you forget this name? I am not forgetting the institution. It's just a hard name, just like ours, UCLG. Now we are in this story together, and I really hope we can make a difference. Thank you on behalf of all the migrant women, me included, and thank you for working with us. Good luck, all of you, all of us. Thank you, Fatima.
Well,
So
thanks. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Thanks.
So let us see and go to our next speaker directly, right, Fatima? Is that what you're expecting from me? Okay. So I am going to our representative of UN Women at the Regional Office for Europe and Central Asia, Iris. And Iris, I am terrible with names, as you have noticed, so I don't really dare pronouncing your name. Christian Dottir, is that close? Iris.
It's very good. It's excellent.
Okay, now the floor is yours. We're very happy to have you with us. Some introductory words on how you think we should frame this work from the experience of you and women. Very well.
Thank you, and sincerely for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to participate in this. That even though I am today the representative or representing UN Women and the work that we are doing, I would like to share with you that I started my career early in this area, and one of the on my year, I think 2 or 3, working on migration, I was working on the first city policy on integration at the time, working closely with all actors. So as probably many of you know, once this subject or topic becomes close to your heart, whether you have personally are experiencing or working in this area, it's very difficult to take those glasses off ever again. So they follow me wherever I go, and thankfully I'm still giving opportunity to work on this topic through a different entity. Mrs. Sayes, you summarized very well all the points that I will be mentioning now as well in my speech or my presentation, because I think it's nothing new under the sun. The same vulnerabilities and the marginalized situation that many find themselves is being exacerbated in the current context, and we are facing more challenges than ever. So I'll start with my more formal talking points here. So around the world, cities are welcoming migrants and displaced populations like never before, with women and girls arriving in unprecedented numbers. In 2019, or even today, half of the estimated 272 million migrants living and working outside their countries of origin were women. Whether migrating voluntarily or forced to leave their homes, it is increasingly apparent that men and women use cities in different ways: public transit, public spaces, housing, etc. And that cities impact men and women migrating differently. Women and girls are coming to cities with hope of creating new opportunities, finding greater independence, gaining more security, and forging new lives for themselves and their families. However, migrant women and girls often experience multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination and find themselves in situations exposed to vulnerabilities. They may face greater risk of discrimination because laws and policies often reproduce or reinforce existing gender equalities in countries of origin, transit, or destination. Labor markets remain highly segregated, and women, relative to men, often have limited access to information and lack decision-making power or control over resources. In many countries, women and girls risk of being subjected to violence, exploitation, and abuse when they migrate. In some cases, they fall into the hands of human traffickers, who often offer false promises of employment or assistance. Upon reaching their urban destination, new challenges can arise, and physical and sexual abuse are common threats for women and girls. Part of these challenges for migrant women and girls have increased as the world is facing a global pandemic. The COVID-19 leaves few lives and places untouched. Its impact is harshest on those groups who were already in vulnerable situation before the crisis. And this is particularly true for many women and girls on the move, who face higher risk of exposure to gender-based violence, abuse, and exploitation, and have too frequently limited access to protection and response services. To ensure safe, inclusive, and equitable migration, UN Women has been promoting migrant women's empowerment through the promotion of gender-responsive policies and laws and programs and services, as well as capacity building, knowledge protection, and through campaigns. On migration, UN Women has been supporting international organizations, states, and civil society organizations to ensure gender perspectives are incorporated in legal frameworks and policies at all levels, to effectively protect the rights of women so that they can enjoy their lives regardless of migratory status. UN Women also plays an important role in coordinating and promoting the UN system's work in advancing gender equality and in all deliberations and agreements linked to the 2030 Agenda. It is critical that national and local migration policies, law, and measures recognize and address the specific needs, challenges, and situations of all women and girls, and in migration, especially those at more risk of being exposed to vulnerability. For local governments, to support migrant women and girls and ensure their needs and rights are protected, policies which provide migrant women with equal access to social protection, including healthcare, maternity protection, and sick leave should be established, as well as clear and accessible information on migrant women's social security entitlements, including portability of social security benefits and collaboration with non-governmental organizations, including trade unions and women's organizations. Contributing to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, UN Women strives to make the vision of the SDG agenda a reality for women and girls and stands behind women's equal participation in all aspects of life. Female migrant workers' rights are closely linked to the SDG 5 on gender equality and empowerment of women, SDG 8 on the promotion of decent work and productive employment, as well as SDG 10 on orderly, safe, irregular, and responsible migrations and mobility of people. UN Women is supporting migrant women through its effort to achieve these goals. Besides national and local development and sectoral plans, UN Women has also developed and implemented efforts in line with national and local priorities to strengthen policies that facilitate the consultation or participation of migrant workers and their families in decisions concerning the life and administrations of local communities. It is vital to account for the impact of migration on women and girls' lives and to incorporate migrants, their voices in the process of concrete solutions for their inclusion at local level. To do so, UN Women works continuously with 1, support and strengthen women's organization and their efforts for migrant women by providing adequate and sustained financial and technical support. 2, capacity building to respond better to localized needs with tangible results, broaden participation of local actors. 3, provide relevant information to local and national governments to identify and formulate policies that they will meet the needs of migrant women and girls. 4, contribute to enhancing key stakeholders' capacity to integrate gender into policies, programs, projects and other initiatives linking remittance with the sustainable livelihood of migrant women and girls. UN Women stands at the center of mobilizing governments and civil society to keep the promises of the Beijing Platform for Action to all of society. In everything it does, UN Women is committed to making the inclusion of migrant women and girls at the local level reality for all women and girls who have historically been marginalized and who have waited long enough. The COVID-19 crisis will dramatically increase the poverty rate of women and widen the gap between women and men who live in poverty, according to a new data realized a few days recently by UN Women and the United Nations Development Programme, or UNDP. The poverty rate for women was, and now I'm mentioning in general, was expected to decrease by 2.7% between 2019 and 2021, but new projections now point to an increase of 9.1% due to the pandemic and its fallout. To conclude, UN Women's Executive Director recently highlighted that the increases in women's extreme poverty are a stark indictment of deep flaws in the ways we have constructed our societies and economies. We know that women take most of the responsibility for caring for the family. They earn less, save less, and hold much less secure jobs. In fact, overall, women's employment is 19% more at risk than men's. The evidence we have here of multiple inequalities is critical to drive shift, restorative policy action that puts women at the heart of the pandemic recovery. While echoing these numbers, we know that women on the move are at even greater risk of being exposed to extreme poverty, gender-based violence, or to be further marginalized in their local communities. And thus it is more urgent than ever that we ensure effective policy response and measures that are fully inclusive of the needs of women on the move. So thank you again.
Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us. I think you are absolutely right that once that you look at the world through that lens, you will not be able to look at it differently. And I hope that everybody starts looking at it that way. I am very, very surprised about how little coverage the dramatic situation in the refugee camp in Moria is getting. I mean, this is an unprecedented situation. It's thousands and thousands of people that have had to move away, to lose everything without certainty about who is going to welcome them. I think this is a lens that we need to put on, because imagine the women in that situation, often with children that depend on them, with elderly that depend on them, often facing threats in terms of safety, etc. Health, safety, and the care situation are many of the main concerns that I think local governments face when trying to attend the needs of these women. And it's really difficult because all of these areas are not necessarily areas where local governments have a competence. It doesn't mean that they don't want to do something about them, that they don't finally do something about them, but they have very limited competencies around this area. And it is something that we need to look at together. This is why it is so important that this topic touches other areas of policy making that we are working on together. So I'm very grateful for bringing us those global figures. People are asking in the chat for your presentation. That's always a very good sign, Iris. So I hope we can share that, because people have been very interested in what you were saying. So thank you for these thoughts. Let us go now to our next speaker. That is Anila Noor, the Managing Director of the New Women Connectors. And I am really delighted to have you with us, Anila. We are really looking forward to having your perspective in this.
Thank you, Amelia. It's a pleasure to be here in vast and global level discussion. Thank you so much for having me here. So before starting my contribution towards this discussion, I would like to say who I am. I am a refugee political asylum seeker from Pakistan, but living in Netherlands. And why I said that, because we sometimes forget who we are and what we are doing, it matters. And I'm not sharing because telling someone like I'm a refugee and it's a trend. No, it's not. Why we are saying? Because we are reflecting our lives to indication of the system which is letting us down and letting us refugee and migrant women down. And it's coincident, like I am a daughter of a Kashmiri refugee who migrated from Kashmir in 1947, but I myself also become a refugee in Europe. And my life in Europe becoming like a everyday struggle. And when we are saying compare Europe, which is structured, well-maintained countries, developed countries, and if they are doing this kind of discrimination towards refugee and migrant women, then you can imagine how much discrimination and gender gaps is there on the global level. That's why we always give a comparison and representation of what refugee and migrant women are saying who are living in Europe. So what is New Women Connectors? So New Women Connectors is, we just started in 2018. And my struggle, being a feminist and advocate for the gender equality, we faced the gap, what policies, integration policies. They are talking about refugees as a journal to be integrated in their new homes. They are never been gender sensitive. They never been considered gender as a main component of their integration policy. And we found at New Women Connected, we need to make something like this, a platform where refugee and migrant women come on and tell what they think, what are the gaps, because there is a gap of understanding who is integrated or who is not. So mostly integration policies, which is running by cities in Europe, they are only ending and pushing everyone to get a job, get a language of the host country, and that's it. And they think they are integrated. But reality is more than that. The difficulties is more than that. Women who is coming from developing countries, women who are never been asked what you want to do due to their cultural barriers or due to their religious barrier or something. But the debate is that as a Europe, what you are offering them, you are again putting them in their traditional roles. You are expecting them to be at home, just give a birth to children, and there's lack of resources. In 2018 and 19, when we started our initiative, New Women Connector, we launched a project called Cities for Her. So we started initiative, our event, City Amsterdam for Her. And it was so heartbroken for us. There was lack of resources, there were lack of understanding why we are doing this. But still, we didn't let it go. We continue our movement to running. And now when COVID happened, again, we launched our movement project called Leading Resilience, because we as a refugee and migrant-led organization, we take us as opportunity, because COVID is gender, not discriminating on the gender base or country base. They are just affecting all of us. There's a solidarity element. And we took this opportunity and we launched this project. And under this project, we are really giving a platform for refugees, migrant women, coping together, growing together. So we can understand how we see the situation. We want to put our problems, but also coming up with a recommendation. We do not need to reinvent the wheel. As our colleague from the presentation from UN Women, she was sharing how much difficulties migrant women or refugee women are facing. And if they are facing these difficulties in Europe, you can imagine women who are living in Kampala, women who are living in Bangladesh, what kind of level of discrimination they can face. There is a lack of resources. There is lack of resources to refugee-led, women-led initiative. And that's the reason we really want to bring a bottom-up approach to bring the understanding. When we are talking about the policy who is running by cities, who's running by municipalities, unfortunately, they are not understanding what refugee and migrant really need. They really need to map out and to give them a resources. I will share Yesterday, I was having a conversation with UNHCR because we are so happy they launched refugee-led award. And I was saying, but look, there is a structural barrier because you are asking to give award to those organizations who are registered, who have bank account. And even in Europe, if you're a refugee-led organization and or woman-led organization, it's so difficult to get registered. It's not easy to get bank account. So this is a structural barrier we really need to highlight. It's the system. It's not a we are women or we are men. We are letting down each other, but the way we need to, work with the structure, with the system, we really need to change it. And I think COVID is really giving us opportunity when this COVID tunnel end and we have in a new normal, we can work with each other and really try to understand the knowledge, the experience we have, and we forgot who we are, but we never feel we are human beings. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anila, for these inspiring words. I think that you have certainly brought the human face to the problem, but also asked for us to look at this issue not from a pity perspective, but from an opening up opportunities and empowerment perspective, which I certainly acknowledge. I know very well the integration policies of the Netherlands, and I mean many of us started not to use that word anymore in our day-to-day language because it kind of implied, I was a migrant there as well, that we just needed to mix and disappear our own identity. And you are right, they had a very economic perspective to it. I think it's very important for the discussions that we're holding today. That we keep those ideas in mind, that it is about empowerment. Also very important from what you have shared, and just to go into the next round, it's very critical to understand that making a difference between needs of people is not making differences between people. The needs are different, and in order to be all the same and to have the same opportunities, we need to address those needs in different ways. So it's not about dealing with women over men. It's about giving us all an opportunity, a fair opportunity. And I'm saying this because in this workshop and for the continuation of our work, we will be challenged in finding the balance between very pragmatic solutions that I'm sure the cities that come up next in the next round will want to address. You know, you need to solve problems. People are waiting. People are waiting. There is no time. They need to solve problems, so be very pragmatic about it. But also the longer term transformation that Anila is talking about. So I think in this presentation, we've given you the good intentions and the commitments of the constituency of local governments represented by United Cities and local governments, the willingness to do this through our partnership with ICMPD, the knowledge of UN Women and you know this strong ally that we have there to push for transformation, and the real life story and both solutions and challenges that Anila is bringing with the new women connections. We are not waiting around and seeing what you give us. We are going to transform this. Okay, these are the components. And now we're going to the cities, and I'm leaving you in the able hands of my colleague Amanda Fletty. She is the coordinator of our commission for social inclusion and human rights. And she will be trying to get out the stories and the perspectives of the cities that work with us. These are just a few of them, but important ones for us. So the floor is yours. Good luck, Amanda.
Thank you very much, Emilia, and thank you to our first speakers for shaping the challenges and reminding us how important it is to have this session in the framework of local governments. Maybe reminding that for the Committee on Social Inclusion, the right to city has been one of the main and strong message shared within UCLG, and we are addressing today one of these questions that is challenging this right to city. Migrant women is not a common topic, and sometimes can be kind of this blind question that we can have some expectation, but still need to bring to the table. I would like to welcome our 3 cities who are participating to the panel today, and thanking you for accepting to share your experience and your views on this topic. Hopefully we will have an interesting exchange to see a little bit how we can build these more inclusive cities for all, including migrant women. First, I would like to welcome Imen Wardani from Sousse. She's the deputy mayor, the first deputy mayor of the city of Sousse. So I'm very sorry because I will have the responsibility to be mindful of the time. I might be interrupting you if it takes too long, so sorry for that. And I will really try to let you the floor the most I can. So Imen, we were wondering if you could share with us a little bit how and in which areas the city of Sousse is collaborating with the civil society and the migrants organization to support these migrant women that we are talking about and address their specific needs.
Merci Amanda. Tout d'abord, je souhaite la bienvenue à toutes et à tous. Je suis très heureuse de participer à cet événement car je porte la double casquette. Je suis le point focal du projet MC2CM et en même temps, je suis la présidente de la commission de l'égalité de genre. Je profite de l'occasion aussi pour vous dire que la ville de Sousse est fière de ses efforts, des avances qu'elle a fait, entre autres la création d'un nouveau type de coopération avec les associations. Et telle la preuve à côté de moi, c'est Madame Juliana Chucha, c'est la présidente de l'ONG Dignity of Immigrant Women, et donc elle a souhaité participer avec moi au sein de la municipalité de Sousse. Ça, on peut dire qu'il y a une relation de confiance, une collaboration qui a été construite, surtout pendant la période de la pandémie. Avant de commencer, je veux dire que la ville de Sousse ou la Tunisie, depuis la nuit des temps, était un pays de destination. D'ailleurs, donc, on a connu plusieurs mouvements. Le pays a accueilli donc, différentes nationalités et religions. Et donc, ces étrangers ont marqué beaucoup l'histoire de la Tunisie et leur culture et traditions sont ancrées dans notre société. La période du Covid-19 nous a permis de découvrir plusieurs réalités, connaître les besoins spécifiques des migrants, notamment les femmes. Aussi, c'était une occasion d'établir un nouveau type de collaboration, d'établir également une relation de confiance avec les migrants, y compris les femmes migrantes. Avant de partager avec vous un tout petit peu l'expérience de la ville de Sousse et les réponses prises au profit des femmes migrantes, je voulais tout d'abord vous dire que la ville de Sousse est le deuxième pôle universitaire après, donc de destination des étudiants étrangers après Tunis. Et donc, selon le profil migratoire élaboré par notre expert local dans le cadre du projet MC2CM, donc le nombre de femmes migrantes, il n'est pas à négliger car il représente presque la moitié donc, du nombre total des migrants. Là, je parle que ce soit les migrants internes ou bien les migrants externes. De plus que pour la tranche d'âge des jeunes est la prédominante. En ce qui concerne les étudiantes, donc migrantes, internationales, et donc elles représentent 38% pour les femmes subsahariennes et 36% pour les femmes maghrébines. Donc, ce sont des chiffres à prendre en considération et donc là, on doit plutôt intégrer l'approche genre dans nos politiques locales. Pendant la période du Covid-19, comme vous le savez presque tous, la municipalité de Sousse a lancé un programme d'assistance et de prévention globale et multi-acteurs du territoire, au profit des migrants, des réfugiés et des demandeurs d'asile. Durant cette période, mis à part les assistances que ce soit psychologiques, alimentaires, financières, etc. Donc, nous avons mené plusieurs enquêtes afin de reconnaître de près les problèmes et les besoins des migrants, et y compris les femmes migrantes. Et donc, les premiers défis qu'on constate, c'est le défi majeur. Personnellement, moi, je le considère comme un défi majeur, c'est la régularisation de la situation des femmes travailleuses. Car ce problème empêche et inhibe l'intégration, que ce soit sociale et économique, de ces migrants. C'est le premier défi majeur et c'est à cause de la fameuse loi du 1968 et le code de travail tunisien assez rigide qui empêche ces migrants d'avoir un travail digne, d'avoir un contrat et d'éviter la traite humaine. Et donc, c'était le défi majeur. Maintenant, je vais parler plus particulièrement de la femme migrante par rapport à ce point-là, par rapport à ce défi-là. Donc, le fait d'avoir un statut de séjour irrégulier, ça permet l'exploitation de ces femmes, les conditions dans lesquelles elles travaillent qui sont vraiment pénibles. Aussi, donc, généralement, on parle plus spécifiquement des femmes travailleuses parce que les femmes étudiantes se rencontrent moins ce genre de défi puisqu'ils ont leur carte de séjour provisoire. Et donc, les femmes migrantes à Sousse sont généralement des employés domestiques. Et donc, ils sont contraints d'abus et de violences domestiques, mis à part aussi, selon Madame Julienne, déjà depuis notre dernière réunion, la violence conjugale existe aussi, puisque on trouve que ces communautés, notamment la communauté subsaharienne, vivent ensemble, généralement dans les mêmes maisons et dans les mêmes quartiers. Et donc, pour le deuxième défi, pour ne pas être très longue, donc le deuxième défi, c'est l'accès à l'information. Là, selon les enquêtes que nous avons menées, dans le cadre aussi du projet MC2CM pendant la période du coronavirus, la période du confinement, pardon, et donc nous avons remarqué une très grande défaillance par rapport à l'accès à l'information, que ce soit pour les citoyens locaux que les migrants. Et donc, c'est un point qu'on doit travailler beaucoup là-dessus. Deuxième défi, c'est l'accès aux soins, notamment pour les migrantes. Car vous le savez, donc, la majorité des travailleurs ou sont des femmes enceintes ou bien ayant des enfants. Donc là, ça pose un problème du côté des migrants et aussi du côté des directions régionales de la santé, puisque les agents, on a remarqué que les agents ne sont pas très bien informés par rapport aux droits des migrants. Pour tout ce qui est xénophobie ou racisme, franchement, on n'a pas remarqué vraiment un discours haineux. Je pense que c'est vu l'histoire de la Tunisie qui est un pays de destination. Donc nous, on a pris en considération tous ces points-là pendant le confinement et on a pris en considération aussi la vulnérabilité de cette catégorie. Et d'ailleurs, même lors de la distribution des aides sociales, la prise en charge psychologique, on a toujours priorisé les femmes ayant des enfants, les femmes enceintes, les femmes travailleuses et ensuite les hommes donc ayant des enfants, etc. Je pense que j'ai transmis les défis et les soucis des migrants. Maintenant, la relation avec les associations. Donc, je ne sais pas si j'ai une minute.
Imen, on va devoir s'arrêter là. Je te laisse 10 secondes si tu veux dire quelque chose, un peu un mot sur la relation avec les associations, mais il faut vraiment qu'on puisse passer au deuxième intervenant.
D'accord, juste dans quelques secondes, je vais résumer notre relation avec la société civile, les organisations de la société civile, parce que nous, on croit qu'on peut pas aller plus loin, on ne peut pas avancer sans intégrer les associations dans notre travail, dans nos actions. Et donc, les associations ont joué un rôle prépondérant dans la gestion de cette crise, y compris les associations de migrants et des migrantes qui ont joué un rôle de médiation avec leurs confrères et on a pu donc établir la relation de confiance à travers ces associations et donc là je salue vivement les initiatives et l'implication de ces associations migrantes en attendant une implication donc de plus en plus accentuée, importante dans les jours qui viennent. Merci.
Thank you, Imen. I would like now to invite our second speaker, Claudio Tocchi. He's from the cabinet of the Deputy Mayor on Human Rights of the City of Torino. Please, could you share with us how the existing local policies of Torino regarding migrants, but also implemented within the framework of the gender agenda, are addressing and revealing those needs of migrant women?
Yes, Amanda, thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes, you have 6 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm rushing. Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm working for the Deputy Mayor of Human Rights of the City of Torino. Human rights includes gender, equal opportunities, intercultural action, LGBT issues, and a lot of other separated topics. Well, I mean, to start with, Torino is a fairly big city. It's the fourth Italian city. It has about 800,000 inhabitants. About 160,000 of them are migrants, and roughly half of that is women. So first thing that we have to keep in mind when we're talking about women migrant issues is that we have a really wide array of possible combinations and issues. I mean, refugees and asylum seekers are a very tiny percentage of that very big population. We have migrants first generation, we have second generation who don't hold the citizenship, we have persons who have citizenship, different legal statuses, different ages, different nationalities, white, non-white, visible minorities, non-visible minorities. So we really have a very wide array of topics. And to map them and to understand the needs of specific groups of migrant women, we first had to establish mechanisms to listen to that. And I mean, the issue of listening and relating to that is particularly interesting. I mean, I'm a man, I'm white, personally. So I was fully aware of at least one thing when I entered my job, that if we are going to have a relationship with one community and select or have only one or a few stakeholders to talk to, they would most likely be men, mid-age, heterosexual. So we would only have a very limited perspective of the needs and problems of that community if we only listen to one or a few stakeholders and need holders. So what we try to do is to enlarge the public that we were dealing with. And we did it in a way that we established working tables for almost each community or different combination of communities depending on the needs. I will not go into details because we don't have enough time, but trust me, we build up the working groups as overlapping with the needs that we could. And in those working groups, we had all possible associations, stakeholders, and needs holders, so that we could listen to what we call the minority within minorities. The youth of a specific community group, the elderlies, women, second generations, and so on and so on. So that we were able to listen within the community to different nuances of needs and of problems and of resources. The second thing that we needed to implement was a way to bring the needs that we heard in these working groups to the different offices within the municipality, which is very big, as you can imagine. The city is big, so also the municipality and the offices are very big. Now, the main issue, and I'm relating to what Mrs. Nina said before, was not that much the issue of the job, rather the access to services. What we were experiencing, and what I think many other cities are experiencing, is a way of structural racism, which is the main problem for persons who have a migrant background, regardless of their nationality. They can be Italian, but if their skin has a different color, if they have other signs of visible diversity, which is, for example, the Islamic veil or other, they might be discriminated against within every office, within every, I mean, I'm not talking about private discrimination, that's another thing, but now we're dealing with access to services. That was a very big issue, and it was a big issue during the COVID-19 emergency, because for many persons it was very difficult to get access to all the possible benefits or help or support that the municipality and the state were providing. In that case, having already established channels with those stakeholder need holders, women associations of different communities was a very, very big strength to rely upon, because we were able to listen directly to the needs and channel directly the help and the support through those bridges. And I will just bring a couple of samples, and then Amanda will close to that. We have two interesting projects. One is called the Women in the Neighborhood, where we have migrant with a migrant background who has been in this country for about a couple of dozens of years, that help the newcomers to get access to the services in a private peer-to-peer, let's call it this way, relationship. And then we have a project which involves the community associations, which is more like through an association, not through direct contact. But both of them foresee the fact that we need bridges to get from the institution to the individuals in the communities, and we do not necessarily look for a direct contact, because we understood that we need help to understand the needs and to bring resources to the persons. So that's to give you a bit of an idea of the kind of approach that we try to implement in the last years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claudio, for respecting also the time, and also bring to this discussion the importance of having this issue of migrant women seen as a cost-cutting issue, as also Emilia was saying. Now, we need here not only to have one response, but to have a cross-cutting approach, mixing different criteria. Our last speaker is coming from the city of Sao Paulo. I hope I will pronounce your name correctly. Apologize if not. So we are welcoming Mrs. Patricia Dictekemien, General Coordinator of the Human Rights and Citizenship Office of the city of Sao Paulo.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you pronounced it quite right. My parents are Armenian, so I'm second generation of migrants in Sao Paulo. Firstly, I'd like to thank the United States and local governments in the person of Mrs. Amanda Fletcher for this opportunity, and the Mediterranean City-to-City Migration Project for this important debate. During my speech, I'd like to emphasize 5 main topics of the workings of Sao Paulo regarding migrant women. I must remember, firstly, that in Sao Paulo we have over 12 million persons. So we are basically a country, or maybe sometimes a continent, and we are the largest city in South America. I think Mexico City is still bigger, so I wouldn't say Latin America, but South America for sure. So we have in São Paulo, in terms of intern migration, we are the main source of domestic displacements, and even in the region with Venezuelans, with Colombians, we have a lot of, and Bolivians, we have a lot of regional migration as well as international migration. But my 5 topics that I wanted to discuss today is regarding our framework that we developed in the past years. And it's a quite recent politics, I would say, public politics, I would say something like the past 10 years that we developed a really progressive approach regarding migration. So first of all, I would like, more broadly speaking, I would like to emphasize that all migrants in São Paulo have universal access to education, health, and social services, regardless of gender or migratory status. So even if the migrant or the refugee comes undocumented or lacking documentation, they will access our universal system of health, our public schools, and our social services as temporary shelters and other basic needs. On legal terms, so my second point is that São Paulo is the first city in Brazil to develop a local policy for migrants, grounded on a municipal law of 2016. So we developed this specific law in order to guarantee equal rights and opportunities for local integration. In this sense, we also try to encourage migrant women engaging in leadership positions in many communities in São Paulo. As I said, São Paulo is a country itself. In this sense, my third point is that regarding the importance of leadership position of migrants, especially women migrants, we developed in 2017 the Municipal Council for Migrants. It's a unique space in Brazil of 32 representatives with mandatory gender balanced approach, which means that at least 50% of our representatives must be women. In this sense, among them, for instance, we have at least 6 nationalities, like Peruvians, Syrians, Chileans, South Koreans, Congolese, and Chinese. So we have a good array of nationalities, so we can also bear in mind their needs. And this mechanism is really important because since in Brazil, because of the federal legislation and the constitution, migrants are not allowed to vote or to be voted. The Municipal Council for Migrants of São Paulo is the only place that they actually can engage in decision-making process and organizing our public policies. So a lot of our policies developed in the past few years were thanks to listen to them in this multi-dimension space where, and with 50% of women, with a lot of migrant women, where they can actually be part of the decision-making process of our city. So my first point is that a recent milestone, really recent, it was last month, literally, is that the city of São Paulo launched its first municipal plan for migrants policy. So we defined 80 actions to be implemented from 2021 to 2024, and at least 7 goals among them is regarding migrant women's rights and access to public services, such as the right of humanized and intercultural childbirth, special attention for migrant women in conflict with the law, and training public servers towards gender equality and the sensibilities of migrant women. So my 5th point, I don't know if I have a lot of time to develop it, but maybe during our this panel of discussion, 2 minutes, okay. So we have other kinds of services that we provide to guarantee more autonomy and social development for migrants. So one of the main, you have a lot of other services, but I like only to emphasize at least one, because my colleagues, Iman and Claudio, they highlighted the issue of access of information and access to services as main challenges or défis majeurs. In the sense, for us, we also diagnosed this problem, and we created a reference center for migrants in 2014 that makes a specialized multi-language assistance and offers a wide range of services, just to reassure exactly that migrants have access to our service and access to our information in multi-language approach. So we have Spanish, French, Portuguese, of course, English, Arabic, 18 Creole, and Lingala, Congolese language, because we know that we have, those are the main sources of our migrants in Brazil. So we provide the services in these languages in order to make sure that they can access fully all their rights in our city. So maybe I'll stop from here, but I'd like to thank again, and I think this is a really fruitful opportunity for us to discuss and to listen to other good experiences and practices regarding migrant women in São Paulo, in the world. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you, Patricia, for this very interesting overview of what you're doing in São Paulo. I think it's very inspiring. As we are approaching 4 p.m., we should be starting the next part of the session, which is the workshop. I will not have time to ask you this last question on how to straighten and maybe better reinforce this role of local government regarding this question, but we will share together, brainstorm together during this second part of the session, during this workshop on how could be this role of local government be straightened now, and try to better explore together the responses from the local level regarding this challenge. So I don't know if Fatima is here and maybe can
I am,
take
yes.
the floor to explain a little for the breakout sessions, how it will work.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amanda, for being so compliant with time, and thank you very much to all the speakers. We want to say, first of all, that this is not the only interaction and the only input we want from you, but we are going to this next section of the session where we want to brainstorm together with you. So the idea now is that we listen to all of you, but through a different kind of interaction. So to do so, we will continue to reflecting on the challenges that migrant women might face that are very specific to them, but also the barriers that local government face when trying to tackle those, and also what are the opportunities and the strengths of local governments to play a role to help their neighbors in facing their challenges. So what we will do is to separate you into breakout rooms per language. So you will see that some of you will stay in this main room with our colleague Lamina Abad from ICMPD and with our colleague Prachi from UCLG, and they will guide you into an interactive exercise. And to show you the kind of exercise we want to do, I would ask my colleague Fatima Gaddar from ICMPD to share in her screen the kind of whiteboard we will be using, and in order to try to reproduce some of those exercises we have been doing many times in our MC2CM peer learning events, where we did have real walls to stick our ideas. So as you see, there are 3 groups. One is a multilingual one with interpretation available in all the languages. Another one is in French, and another one is in Spanish. In the French one, you will be accompanied by me and my colleague Mathilde. And in the Spanish one, we will have our colleagues from the Committee on Social Inclusion, Amanda and Jaume. So, of course, we have allocated you according to the preferences you have expressed on your language, but if you find yourself in a room where you don't understand the language, you can always press a button to go back to the main room where you will have interpretation. That being said, I just want to warn you that when you click OK to be redirected to this other room, which will happen soon, you will, for 1 or 2 seconds, Zoom will disappear, but it will come back in that room. So no worries there. And last thing, I want to repeat that this is meant to be participatory, so please write in the chat your ideas and also raise your virtual hand because we want to hear from everyone. We won't have much time. We will see each other once again in 30 minutes in this room. So please, good luck and have fun. So, yeah.
So, hello colleagues, I think some of you still need to move to their breakout rooms because we are still too many, so we'll wait a bit. And also while Fatima will be sharing with us the screen, maybe I can start to give you some recommendations on how we will work in this breakout session. So here you still have the interpretation, so you can speak in French, Spanish, Arabic or English, even if for the colleagues that can use the English, we would advise you to use the English. We will have in the first part of the session 5 minutes to discuss issues specific issues, challenges that face migrant women. I will ask you to raise your hand if you want to speak. So on the participant list, you can raise your hand so we can see the colleagues that want to take the floor. But I will ask you to make very short interventions and to go straight to the point. Also you can use the chat function to tell us in the chat make your recommendations in the chat directly. So I'm looking now if there is any colleague. We are not seeing. Maybe I can, Fatima, if you can try to share again. I think we're not seeing. The other way, I will try to share it from my side if you allow me, Fatima, then. Maybe I will see if it works for me. But I will need you to stop sharing from your side. So, as you can see now in the screen, we have already some concrete challenges, issues for migrant women that has been mentioned. We have in particular gender-based violence, lacking legal and aid and documentation, limited opportunities, job insecurity, human trafficking. But we would like to hear from you, colleagues, issues that you highlighted, you noted in your work, in your daily work, and Prachi, our colleague, will take note of these ones. Again, you can use either the raise hand function, so we can give you the floor, or directly on the chat. I see Leila Youssef that wants to take the floor. So please, Leila.
Bonsoir. Je peux parler en français?
Oui, oui, allez-y, Leila.
Ok. Bonsoir tout le monde et merci pour cette merci pour nous donner cette occasion de parler d'un sujet très important, le droit dans la ville pour la femme, plus particulièrement les femmes migrantes. Et pour nous, ce qui nous concerne la ville de Irbid en Jordanie, je vais parler des femmes, des réfugiés syriens, les femmes syriennes réfugiées. Et Donc, à l'échelle de la municipalité, qui représente une gouvernance locale, je vais parler de certaines expériences qui ont permis aux femmes, que ce soit les femmes de la communauté locale, de situation vulnérable et les femmes syriennes aussi, d'accéder à certains, et ceci à travers certaines initiatives, donc à l'échelle locale, d'accéder à certaines activités économiques et donc et autre chose que je vais citer comme expérience.
Thank you very much, Leila. So we have the issue of access to economic opportunities and economic empowerment. I will ask you, je vais vous demander, Leila, si vous pouvez aller, parce qu'on voudrait aussi écouter les autres collègues, si vous pouvez donner 2-3 points concrets que vous souhaitez que nous notions dans le tableau, et après nous aurons l'occasion d'écouter d'autres collègues.
D'accord, oui, d'accord. Donc, premier point, c'est l'autonomisation économique des femmes. Donc, la municipalité a développé des instructions pour autoriser l'exercice de certaines professions à l'intérieur du domicile. Ces instructions ont donné le droit et facilité aux femmes de travailler à partir de leur maison et exercer certaines fonctions à partir de leur maison. Et dans le cadre de création de petites entreprises à domicile. Donc, la municipalité s'est engagée dans certaines campagnes de sensibilisation pour ces instructions, pour informer les femmes de ces instructions en collaboration avec différents partenariats, sociétés civiles, NGOs, secteur privé. Donc, ces formations consistaient à donner les femmes un outil pour pouvoir écrire des principes de base dans la conception et la rédaction de propositions de projets et participer pour pouvoir obtenir des subventions financières pour leurs projets. Et les idées en font de la municipalité pour pouvoir acquérir une autorisation pour pouvoir exercer cette fonction, cette profession au niveau de la maison. Ça, c'est premièrement.
Merci, Leila. Alors, sorry, Leila. I will come back to you later because here I think you're already entering in the opportunities and what can be done by local authorities. And as you can see, that's one of the next points that we will be discussing. At the moment, I would like really that we focus on the challenges. So we took well note on the access to the lake of economic opportunities, and maybe one of the issues that based on what you're saying, a challenge was also the lake of legislative frameworks that may allow migrant women to develop their own businesses, and maybe businesses that could be adapted to their situation. In this case, I understand women that had the need to work from home and to develop businesses from home. I will come back later to you, Leila. So when we talk about what local authorities have been doing and what can be done from the local authorities sphere. But here I would like to give a last chance in terms of challenges to the colleagues that are in the session to bring some further challenges. Please raise your hand or just mention it in the chat directly. So no further, I don't see any hand raised in the, Nancy, I see that Nancy Para, which is applauding, raising the hand in the participant list, but please, Nancy, go ahead. You have to unmute, Nancy, please. Unmute your microphone, Nancy.
مساء الخير وشكرا لاستضافتنا ولهذا الطرح الرائع لهذا الموضوع المهم. هلا أحد التحديات بالنسبة للنساء اللاجئات هو الخوف من الظهور أصلاً في المجتمع. يخافون أن يظهرن أصلاً في الشارع أو يتواجدن في أي مكان حتى لا يعرف بأنهن من فئة اللاجئات، وبالتالي يخسرن أي فرصة للحصول على أي مساعدة. ممكن هون إحنا في عندنا في الأردن العديد من اللاجئات السوريات في بلادهن لا يكون منقبات، بيجوا عنا على الأردن يرتدين النقاب حتى يخفين هويتهن، حتى لا يعرف أحد أنهن في الأصل لاجئات. هذا إذا كنا يردن الظهور إلى الشارع أو عليهن البقاء في منازلهن، وذلك ليتجنبوا لأي تصرف أو ردة فعل تحدث لهن من قبل الشارع الأردني أو من قبل المجتمع. في بعض المناطق طبعاً، لا أتكلم عن جميع المناطق. أظن يعني ممكن تكون هاي إحدى التحديات، هو الخوف من الظهور أصلاً في المجتمع. وشكراً.
Thank you very much, Nancy. I think we take well note of the insecurity and that links to public spaces, and also the issues that are linked to the insecurity to face the society and what the opinion that would have the society. And there is maybe a need to empower, in this case, migrant women in facing the society and give them more secure spaces. I don't see further hand, and as we are a bit taken by the time, I would like to jump to the next point that we have, which is regarding barriers. So we see here that we have a set of challenges. Probably some further challenges exist, and that we could mention others. But maybe I would like to ask you now to react on what are the barriers that local governments face, indeed, when they want to support migrant women. So from the local government perspective, when you want to support migrant women in terms to face or to be protected from human trafficking, to empower them economically, to offer them more opportunities for inclusion, to struggle against gender-based violence, mainly on the challenges we're seeing here. I would ask you what kind of challenges you face. I see that we have several representatives from cities, but also from regional governments in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Jordan, and from different also regions of the world. So please do not hesitate to take the floor, raise your hand virtually, or write it in the chat directly. Again, I don't see any specific hand raised. Maybe I can ask some of the colleagues that are in the room. I think, yes, Sirakis, please. تفضل Sirakis. We don't hear you. I see no hands raised. We have Yasmin Al-Hayek. Please, Yasmin. I will ask you to keep intervention very short, so then we can go to the next colleagues. We have also Baraka Damas and Wajdi ID from Sfax. But Yasmin, please.
Hello, everyone. I will be very short. I'm working in MEWA region, Middle East and West Asia, especially in Turkey. And the barriers local government faces, it's actually explaining and demolish the traditional role of women and migrants women. And I believe in this case, they are trying to also raise awareness for men also, because we need to target both men and women. But local governments, it's having really barriers with attention of men and the gender of male, to understand and how to change their stereotype of the traditional role of women. So if we solve this issue, we will have the key for lots of other issues, for economic empowerment, for their inclusion. because the male is dominate, especially when migrants coming to countries like Turkey, Europe, they're having a big issue with this cultural change. So this is the main point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yasmin. Point well taken. Baraka Damas, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. I just want to put a small contribution on this one. During the COVID-19, I experienced that the response of the cities, especially in the part of the Africa, in Eastern Africa, it was very minimal, and this affects so many areas, include the migrancy and especially women, migrant women, because you find that most of coordination were done at a country level and at the central government level. And in some cases, you find the local government is just implementer of what the central government has decided, which is not bad, but you see different areas, they have different needs, and it would have been nice for the local government to address or to coordinate such kind of response, because local government, they're at the grassroots in their constituents more than the way central government was doing. So I think moving forward, and we need to advocate more to include inclusion and this issue of the women migration, but mostly at the local government area, and this we have to call for international agencies like and also EU. For example, right now EU is in a negotiation period with African states where UCLG Africa is trying to bring the local government or the voice of local government on the table. And I think this topic has come on a right time, that it can be channeled in and see how local government now they start to bring programs, also policy advocates, which now target the women in migration at the local government area. I think that is my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Baraka. I think very point well taken. There is a lack of inclusion of local governments in the responses that are designed in the COVID-19 in particular, and maybe more dialogue is needed, more implication of local authorities to be able to provide better services to migrant women, and maybe tackle better the challenges we mentioned before. I have 3 interventions, 4 now. We have Maître Wajdi. I will ask you try to be straight to the point, and then we go with Sandra, then with Rakez, and then with we have Giyongu and Marjan. So first, Maître Wajdi.
Oui, Lamine, j'ai voulu seulement signaler que il y a un grand problème qui touche la majorité des femmes qui sont installées dans leur ville, c'est le domaine de la communication. Il y a une volonté de la part des femmes migrantes de prendre la et c'est un grand obstacle. La majorité des migrants, ce sont des francophones, c'est vrai, mais c'est pas tous les qui comprennent le français. Il y a un grand problème.
Maître Wajdi, je suis désolé.
Chaque migrant.
On vous entend très très mal. Je vais vous demander si vous pouvez nous mettre votre contribution dans le chat, parce qu'on très mal. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous écrire la contribution dans le chat, comme ça on prendra votre point, parce que la connexion est très mauvaise et on n'a pas compris. Je pense que vous signaliez un défi, mais on n'a pas compris de quoi il s'agissait. Si vous pouvez, s'il vous plaît, nous mettre la contribution dans le chat, et comme ça on pourra la lire et la partager avec l'ensemble des collègues. Next on the list is Sandra. Please, Sandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and hi everybody. So I'll keep it as brief as possible because I think the intervention in the chat has been included. But the main issue here is the local governments need to develop a very comprehensive stakeholder engagement plan with all the women's representatives and participating in the engagement process that can facilitate an inclusive data and research plan to ascertain what are some of the risks and determine the mitigation strategies needed for inclusive policies and program intervention. So the question is, how do you prioritize in the policy formulation phase? Who do you target and how? So I feel a stakeholder engagement directed plan would help in ensuring that. It would also establish a monitoring and evaluation framework that can help build some accountability measures that are desperately needed, particularly when you're looking to mainstream gender into migration, but also gender and disability and other minority groups. Two other suggestions I would have is to make the national migration laws within the city or state to be more inclusive and remove all discriminatory provisions in the laws that can be impeding the integration and inclusion of women in migratory contexts. And finally, which is a driver for everything, is budget. So how can budgeting be allocated and determined within the M&E framework to ensure that there are indicators overseeing quality into policy level interventions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I think some very relevant points, in particular, the stakeholder engagement and how to identify the stakeholders, the monitoring and evaluation, and of course the budgeting issues, how local government can also dedicate, I would say, more budget and from where they can get the budget. We have Guillaume Gouchin, sorry for the pronunciation, I have it good. The floor is yours.
Very correct pronunciation, thank you. I'm from South Korea, Gwangju, so a long way from most of you. But from my experience, I found that the migrant women in my place suffered from the lack of service in their own language. That is one of the severe problems we have. And then another is the opportunities for training for them. And then for women, their children are really crucial. And then in Korean context, education is considered one of the most important services in the society. And then the limited opportunities for the children is quite significant in our context. So opportunities for children, and then more access to public services in terms of language. That's what I found in my place.
Thank you very much. I think here, Prachi, that's more challenges now for that are facing migrant women that we put in the yellow cards upstairs, but very, I think, shared issues that we find all in the different countries, the access to language information, and also I think a very relevant point, opportunities for children, because also by giving opportunities for children, you give more free time for migrant women to develop their own capacities and to empower themselves and maybe to have access to different services and employment in particular. We have still two interventions. I will ask you to be very fast. Marjan and then Rakez, 30 seconds each, so we can jump to the third point of our discussion. Marjan first.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. So I am Marjan, I'm just a little to present myself from Astikud, and for my intervention I would just add some points. It's a lack of communication. I can see that the barriers and challenges that faces the local governments to give like the necessary access to services is the lack of communication with civil society, for example, and lack of communication with the public institutions, and also there is no an active consultation of the institutions, and maybe even the lack of subventions. So it would be better if they make more partnerships like with civil society associations for projects that that targeted like these kind of issues, migrant women. And yes, it's like lack of communication in general.
Thank you very much, Marjan. I think very relevant points. It goes also with the issue of stakeholder engagement that have been mentioned before. So how to identify well the stakeholders and how to better communicate and work together. And also the budget and subvention
a kind
issues,
of collaboration,
which are also always very important, because to develop actions and policies, you also need means. I have Raquez as last intervention. Please, Raquez, try to be short. If you have any specific point that haven't been mentioned that you want to add.
مساء الخير للجميع. حقيقة أنا أعمل في وزارة الإدارة المحلية التي تشرف على عمل البلديات في الأردن. الموضوع طويل ولدينا عمل كبير فيه، ولكن سأختصر حيث أن الوقت قليل معي. كما تعرفون وكما تحدث الزملاء السابقين، الأردن يمكن تعرضت كباقي دول العالم لموجتين أو حدثين كبيرين، هما الهجرة السورية وجائحة كورونا. وبهذا الجانب تحديدا وبالجزئية التي تتعلق بدور النساء وتعزيز دور النساء في العمل البلدي، قامت البلديات في الأردن وشجعنا البلديات على إنشاء وحدات متخصصة في دعم المرأة، تساهم في تعزيز مشاركة المرأة السياسية ودعم ومشاركة المرأة الاقتصادية والاجتماعية.
Thank you very much, Raquez. So
فوجدنا من أهم التحديات التي تواجه عمل المرأة هو التحدي المالي، وحيث أن البلديات سمحت للنساء بتأسيس مشاريع اقتصادية تساهم في تحسين الوضع الاقتصادي للمرأة بشكل عام والمهاجرة بشكل خاص.
Shukran, Raquez. I think here you have been already entering in the third aspect of our discussion, and we just have 3 minutes left, and it's also linking with what Leila Youssef from Irbid was telling us at the beginning. It's the economical opportunities and municipalities can create and should involve and should create frameworks to give more opportunities for migrant women. In the case of Jordan, Syrian refugees, I think Leila was mentioning how a specific framework has been developed by the municipality to allow, and maybe with the support of the national government, to allow Syrian women to work from home and to develop small businesses. So I think that's a really concrete elements. I would like also to hear maybe from other colleagues what opportunities and role for local governments, what concrete concrete points that have been developed maybe by some of the municipalities on this. If any of you want to share, I have Mr. Tayyib Msbahi from la région de l'Oriental, if you want to take the floor.
Bonjour tout le monde. J'ai le plaisir d'intervenir au nom du Conseil de la région de l'Oriental, qui est une région, pour ceux ou celles qui ne la connaissent pas, est une région méditerranéenne, la plus proche de l'Europe ou de la rive nord de l'Europe. Le sujet que vous abordez aujourd'hui est très important. Il concerne la femme en général et la femme migrante en particulier. Je suis ici avec Madame Petria Dani, qui est chargée dans le cadre de la direction de la coopération décentralisée de ces questions de femmes. Et elle va vous dire quelques mots tout à l'heure. Mais je résume mon intervention en 3 pensées. 1. En ce qui nous concerne, notre programme de développement de la région contient un axe important destiné à la promotion de la femme en termes de formation, en termes de recherche de travail, en termes d'emploi. La femme immigrante occupe aussi une place importante dans ce programme. Nous ne faisons pas beaucoup de distinctions entre les femmes ressortissantes du pays et les femmes migrantes. L'ensemble de ces femmes constituent pour nous des cibles pour lesquelles nous œuvrons de manière à améliorer leur situation. À ce sujet, nous avons donc opté pour 3 axes de travail. 1, l'action interne, c'est-à-dire au niveau de la région, et l'axe fondamental de l'intégration de ces femmes, c'est le développement de l'économie solidaire et sociale. Nous avons estimé, grâce à notre expérience, que l'intégration de la femme migrante doit se faire à travers une activité économique, et l'activité sociale et économique la plus édificatrice pour elle, nous pensons qu'il s'agit de l'économie solidaire et sociale dans tous les domaines. Deuxièmement, nous avons aussi un autre axe, à savoir le soutien financier aux coopératives en général et les coopératives des femmes qui travaillent dans le cadre aussi des projets, des petits projets dans le cadre de l'économie solidaire et sociale, des activités concernant les produits des terroirs, concernant les produits alimentaires, concernant les services. Il n'y a aucun secteur que nous ménageons pour permettre à la femme d'intégrer ce processus. Nous comptons aussi et nous travaillons aussi dans le cadre de la coopération décentralisée de 2 manières. La coopération bilatérale avec des régions africaines, et nous avons développé des conventions permettant aux femmes, aux étudiants jeunes, aux jeunes, d'avoir des bourses dans notre région. Ils sont dans notre université, dans nos écoles de formation. Et nous avons aussi développé un autre réseau, à savoir la coopération triangulaire, c'est-à-dire que nous montons des projets avec des organisations européennes. Nous servons d'intermédiaires pour accélérer une dynamique de coopération avec les régions européennes et africaines et marocaines. Et la région de l'Oriental joue un rôle important dans ce domaine, de manière à ce que nous recevons des femmes venant d'Afrique, des pays africains avec lesquels nous avons signé des conventions, financées par des contributions de l'Union européenne et financées aussi par le Conseil de la région de l'Oriental. Il y a plusieurs projets à ce sujet que nous développons. Notre conclusion dans ce domaine, c'est que nous avons des instances de consultation pour les femmes et nous avons un projet ambitieux pour promouvoir la promotion des activités créatrices d'emplois, de revenus pour les femmes migrantes, pour les enfants aussi, les enfants de ces femmes-là. Et nous entendons développer ce réseau avec tous les acteurs nationaux, internationaux, des organisations gouvernementales, non gouvernementales qui veulent vraiment œuvrer dans ce sens-là.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Tahbi. Je vais être obligé de vous couper pour donner l'opportunité à d'autres collègues d'intervenir. On s'excuse. We are very sorry, but we need to keep short intervention. But the points are well taken. I think triangular cooperation is very important to find support. I think you mentioned also a very important point is the creation of opportunities and local economic opportunities, and actually by supporting migrant women, the local authorities are also able to provide more opportunities to their own territories. And I think that's a very interesting point. And I think when you've been mentioning, and it has been mentioned before, when providing also opportunities for the children, it is also supporting social cohesion in the territories. I would like to see if there is any last intervention. We are already late. So if there is any last point, someone that want to add something pertinent in 5 seconds. No hand raised on nothing on the chat. Rakesh and Nancy, but 10 seconds each, please.
Thank you very much. I want just to mention how we come over about the challenge, financial challenge. نحن في البلديات استطعنا أن نتغلب على التحدي المالي بأن اعتمدنا على مجموعة من الشركاء وقمنا بتوزيع الأدوار بينهم. على سبيل المثال قامت البلديات بتقديم الأراضي والعقارات، ورجال الأعمال ممثلين بالشركات ساهموا من خلال المسؤولية الاجتماعية لهم في شركاتهم بالدعم المالي البسيط. والمجتمع المدني والخبرات من أبناء المجتمع المدني الذين يملكون الخبرات في إنشاء المشاريع التشغيلية التي تعود بالفائدة وتخلق فرص عمل للنساء قاموا بتأسيس هذه المشاريع. أيضا أسسوا ذراع تسويقي لاستدامة هذه المشاريع. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that the contribution of the civil society to generate opportunities is very important, and I think it goes along with other of the elements that we said before. Nancy, 10 seconds, we are time over, but the last words for you, Nancy.
أريد أن أذكر عن توفير فرص العمل. تعمل أمانة عمان كشريك تنفيذي في مشروع تحسين البنية التحتية الخضراء في الأردن من خلال إجراءات العمالة المكثفة بالتعاون مع الوكالة الألمانية. وهذا المشروع من شروط هذا المشروع توفير فرص عمل للاجئين السوريين في الأردن، ويركز على تشغيل النساء الرجال وإلى جانبهم النساء وذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة عمر 18 فما فوق. يؤمنون لهم رواتب لفترة محددة مع رقم ضمان اجتماعي، ويعملون على تدريبهم على مهارات معينة لتأهيلهم على العمل فيما بعد في أي مشاريع متوفرة لاحقاً. شكراً.
Thank you very much, Nancy. And I think we should stop. Colleagues came back from the other sessions. So thank you very much. The point is also well taken by Prachi. I think the private sector involvement is important. The cooperation has been mentioned, and the different sectors of the society. I give back the floor, I think, now to my colleague Christophe Lalande, which will be facilitating the next session. Thank you, Christophe.
Hi, sorry, I didn't, I was still muted. Bonjour Lamine, thank you very much for the introduction. Can you hear me? Yeah. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christophe from UN Habitat, and first of all, I want to congratulate everyone, but particularly UCLG, for this session as part of the MC2CM project, because it's another proof that we can really organize a high-quality session from remote. And I think that the quality of the discussion for this webinar and the use of technology is really a proof that we can overcome like the challenge that we are facing now. So I'm very happy to moderate this session. We are going to invite the different rapporteurs from the different breakout sessions. Before that, I really want to highlight the fact that this topic that we are discussing this afternoon is really crucial, especially for the work of MC2CM as a project, but also within our work at UN Habitat. We see like very specific challenges faced by migrant women in cities, and it's always like a bit like sensitive to really address the needs of like specific groups within a group that is already vulnerable. And I hope that the findings from this breakout session will help us to really like better target the action of the project. Also from our point of view at UN Habitat, in order to build responses for cities, but also like for national governments to better address the right to adequate housing for all and including women, there is really a need to build the work on data and evidence-based policy. And I'm very happy, at least in the French session, to see that this came out as a very strong point. So I'm not sure who actually are the rapporteur from the different breakout sessions, because I was not part of all of them. But if it's fine with Madame Sadi, because we were in the same group, I would like to first give her the floor for like the first 3 minutes. Each rapporteur has 3 minutes to present like the main findings from the session and the proposal. Thank you very much.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Je prends la parole?
Oui, on vous entend très bien.
Merci beaucoup, merci. Alors pour notre groupe, je pense que la discussion était très riche. Nous étions ravis d'être dans ce groupe parce qu'on a beaucoup parlé des expériences qui ont été partagées. On a vraiment pu mettre l'accent sur les actions qui peuvent être menées par les collectivités territoriales ou bien les gouvernements locaux d'une façon générale, soit par le renforcement du partenariat avec la société civile. D'ailleurs, on remercie la représentante de SOUS de Tunisie qui a ramené avec elle des témoignages vivants des représentants de la société civile qui ont donné leurs témoignages, et aussi de Sao Paulo pour les actions, notamment la création de musées des droits de l'homme, question de certification des entreprises qui respectent vraiment les droits de l'homme, notamment des migrants, et cela des actions qui peuvent être menées par les gouvernements locaux. Bien sûr, on sait très très bien que les gouvernements locaux n'ont pas vraiment cette compétence dans la majorité des pays, c'est-à-dire même si cette question pourra être traitée à l'échelon local, mais ils n'ont pas ces compétences. Mais je pense avec ces initiatives et ces exemples, on pourra améliorer effectivement le rôle et pourra dépasser les défis rencontrés par les gouvernements locaux. Notamment, on précise beaucoup la question du renforcement du partenariat des gouvernements locaux avec la société civile. C'est le premier point sur lequel on peut vraiment mettre l'accent. Le deuxième aussi, c'est l'implication des gouvernements locaux dans le processus qui concerne les migrants sur leur territoire, notamment la régularisation de la situation, pour leur permettre de bien jouer leur rôle de coordination dans ce domaine. Et je pense aussi que les défis rencontrés par les femmes migrantes, notamment à l'échelon local, c'est ces défis-là qui vont renforcer le rôle des gouvernements locaux, parce qu'à travers ces défis rencontrés par ces femmes migrantes, qu'on pourrait soulever ça à l'échelon national pour y remédier et pour y trouver des solutions. On a mis l'accent pour pas mal de défis rencontrés par les femmes migrantes, notamment à l'accès à la santé, à l'éducation, question de l'état civil. Donc, plusieurs questions qui ont été bien sûr posées, auxquelles on a essayé de discuter et de pouvoir soulever quelques recommandations pour pouvoir améliorer le rôle des gouvernements locaux c'est-à-dire mener une bonne gouvernance de migration sur leur territoire. J'espère avoir donné tous les points qui ont été évoqués dans notre groupe. Le dernier point sur lequel j'aimerais clôturer, c'est que je salue effectivement ce type de rencontre, d'échange, de partage et d'expérience entre différents gouvernements locaux qui pourra vraiment enrichir ce dialogue et pour pouvoir nous aider, chaque gouvernement local, à mener des initiatives à l'échelon local en faveur de la migration, notamment en faveur des femmes migrantes que je pense qui sont les plus touchées par des problèmes et qui rencontrent des défis plus que les hommes, parce que comme il a été évoqué par notre cher monsieur Bousraoui, la femme ne prend pas sa responsabilité toute seule, mais des fois derrière elle il y a des enfants, il y a toute une famille, il prend en charge aussi la responsabilité des autres, et ce rôle-là que prend la femme qui rend ces problèmes énormes surtout dans le contexte de migration. Et je vous remercie.
I would like to ask who is like the rapporteur from the Spanish group, and if possible also like to take the floor and to present the findings of the group.
Yes. I don't know if I should speak in English or Spanish, but in our group in Spanish. Yes?
Yes, you should.
In Spanish? Sorry, I didn't hear
it's okay.
what you said.
It's okay like that, no? In English.
Okay.
Como tú quieras.
Ok, ¿puedes solo acercarte un poco, por favor? Entonces en nuestro grupo pues fue muy interesante compartir ideas, hablando juntos y también a través del chat. No éramos muchos, pero pues los que hablaron pudieron decir, contar sus experiencias propias. Entonces los retos realmente salieron muchas ideas diferentes, hablando de idiomas, de problemas de falta de formatos plurilingües, por ejemplo, en la Ciudad de México, hablando de la necesidad de acceso a salud integral y no solo a ciertas ayudas de salud específicas, de hablar de la trata de mujeres y la explotación que pueden vivir. Bueno, los retos son muy diversos, pero para entrar en lo concreto, las barreras que los gobiernos locales encuentran, que es lo que discutimos luego, los puntos principales que salieron de la discusión fue la falta de acceso a la información, sobre todo para las mujeres migrantes, como ya lo dije, que tienen que ver con los retos que enfrentan, con la falta de confianza que pueden tener en acercarse a las instituciones locales, y también la falta de competencias de los gobiernos locales para poder dirigir recursos o para poder enfocarse particularmente en problemas de mujeres migrantes. Y luego, finalmente, las oportunidades y el rol de los gobiernos locales para enfrentar todos estos problemas y las barreras. Pues esta vez sí tuvimos muchas ideas en nuestro grupo y decidimos compartir dos principales ideas, que son la importancia del diálogo multinivel y de políticas coordinadas con otros tipos de actores que no sean solo gobiernos locales, también con redes regionales, y también el diseño de los espacios.
Paloma se cortó, creo.
Sí, no la veo en la lista de participantes, así que pueden pasar. Christopher, I think we lost Paloma's connection, so you can move to the next group if necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. So I understand the next group is multilingual. Again, I'm not sure who is the rapporteur for the group, but I invite this person to take the floor for 3 minutes before I give the floor to Madam Willis for the overall comment.
I think that's me. So it's Sandra once again. Can you please zoom in on the outcomes of the multilingual group so I can accurately represent the findings? So thank you, everybody. It was a very active discussion, and I think there's some overlap and, of course, cross-validation across the other groups, that the issues for migrant women are pretty straightforward, based on discrimination and the risks and vulnerabilities, specifically gender-based violence, human trafficking concerns, and as well as insecurities in public spaces for women that feel quite vulnerable and amongst the host society. This is particularly provided in the context of the Syrian displaced and refugees populations. And then on a broader level, there was a discussion on limited opportunities for inclusion, as well as legal protection, and the appropriate documentation necessary for representation. So from our legislative frameworks as well as limited training opportunities and educational opportunities for the children. And in terms of access for both services, language barriers, and economic empowerment for women were said to be quite minimal. Now, in terms of the government, so what barriers did the governments face? I think, again, this was mentioned by Christophe, I believe, that inadequate data collection and representation was also discussed here, and that the need for data is essential. And to acquire the representative data, you need a stakeholder engagement plan and particular strategies to ensure that there's appropriate representation and participation. The lack of communication can also be an issue that a stakeholder engagement can take into consideration. And the local governments, how is it that they can be empowered? So if they're disempowered in the context of the federal or state level, this was considered to be quite a bit of a barrier, specifically with not enough policies and social programs that can drive the agenda forward in considering the needs of migrant women in general, as well as other minority groups like women with disabilities. So stereotypes regarding traditional role of women was also quite constraining, even in terms of government or governance. And the interventions were needed to ensure accountability as well as quality evaluation mechanisms were put in place. So moving on to the opportunities. So what opportunities are there for local governments? Obviously, there are quite a few, and I don't want to be repetitive to the other groups, but we need to look at local economic opportunities to support migrant women, keeping in mind that work from home is also an option, as well as subsidizing women in enterprises and making sure that they're represented in both private and public sectors. We also looked at networking between the different stakeholders that include government and NGOs for women's empowerment, solidarity, as well as more specifically economic projects. And also there was a recommendation that I put forward actually to why not consider a migration policy checklist to make sure that city and local governments are mainstreaming women and girls wherever necessary, and link that to whatever quality indicators there are for the monitoring evaluation framework. And then there's, of course, the need to not forget the opportunities that children and youth can provide. So a developmental approach to migration and women in migration in particular. And more specifically, looking at internal actions at regional levels, on city levels for basic services, so shelter, food, targeting women and housing opportunities as well. So I think I've captured all of that, at least I hope so. Oh, one last one, sorry. To consider minority groups of disabilities, the elderly as well, so elderly women, and the LGBTQ community. So that goes back to participation and representation.
Thank you very much, Sandra, for your intervention as rapporteur. I'm sorry that I will also have to ask you to take the floor to make also like an overall comment on the session and the different findings. But perhaps in order to do so and like to transition between like your presentation, the presentation from Ms. Labé and Madame Sadi, I would suggest to take like 2 or 3 questions from the group, reactions based on these presentations before Madame Willis to give you the floor again to for the comments. So if there is any comments or additional input from participants, please let us know. And you can raise your hand. I see no questions, no additional input based on this 3 presentation. So Sandra, if you could please make your comments. You have 3 minutes as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will try to keep to time, although I was told I had 4 to 5 minutes. So I'm coming to you. My name is Sandra Willis. I am the Director for Learning and Development from World Enabled out of UC Berkeley in California. But I'm coming to you from Dubai. So Dubai is a classically migrant city with approximately 90% of the population expatriate. So what insights and I'm a woman, so what insights can we have here? I always start with posing a question. How can gender, and I want to bring the issue of disability, be effectively incorporated into our understanding of migration? And how can we move from gender and disability invisibility to gender and disability mainstreaming in migration? Now, we all know that migration and human mobility is a mega trend that is reshaping the global landscape with an estimated 1 billion migrants around the world. That's 1 in every 7 people. And my country of origin, which is Lebanon, this is also a considerable burden with displaced and refugee populations. The intersectionality of migration and displacement is a focal issue for both the human rights and development agendas. However, influencing both local and government discourse among policymakers and practitioners, and I'm a policymaker. But as policymakers, we are scrambling to understand how these mass movements affect our cities, our economies, security and sustainability, the needs of women, the needs of persons with disabilities, older persons are largely somewhat remain invisible, with limited strategic and systematic consideration. So why is migration a serious concern for women in general and women with disabilities more specifically? Number one, let's consider the multiplier effect. Migrant women face double discrimination. Migrant women with disabilities face triple discrimination as migrants, as women, and as disabilities, taking stigma, sexism, racism, xenophobia, and other serious concerns wherever large-scale migration takes place, and anti-immigrant sentiments that are on the rise and trying to be mitigated. Migrant women can suffer 3 times. The second is migrant women are more likely to face health problems in terms of mental health, physical health, reproductive health as well, both in terms of transit into their migratory status, as well as when they attain their destination. They continue to face barriers to healthcare, especially sexual and reproductive health, family planning, rehabilitation, services for women with disabilities, medication and access to assistive devices are extremely limited, which impact mobility and independence and increase impairments, thus increasing dependency and having a financial income impact. Female migrants face major risks, including harassment, discrimination, and sexual exploitation, trafficking, and violence, which I think were addressed earlier, so I'm not going to belabor the points. However, I would like to mention an additional one. The invisibility of migrants and refugees with disabilities in international normative frameworks in general, but in particular that of women with disabilities, is of concern. There are also wider structural issues that require attention in terms of adjustments in supporting disabled migrants and women. These issues are identified both in treaties such as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and they also consistently feature in the current UN SDGs and targets related pertinent to women and persons with disabilities. So what are the recommendations? I will ground them really quickly in the World Enabled Cities for All initiative that promotes accessible, equitable, and inclusive cities to build resilient cities around the world. The framework is based on 6 principles, of which I will emphasize. The first one is, once again, the need for data for development. There's an obligation of local and state governments that need to respect the internationally guaranteed rights of all persons, including women with disabilities, to protect those rights against abuses and to fulfill the rights necessary for them to enjoy a life of dignity and security and prosperity on the long haul. Protecting these rights is not only a legal obligation, so we need to focus on those legalities, but it's also a matter of public interest and an intrinsic issue around human development, social inclusion, as well as social cohesion. So if people are not represented in research and data, if these populations are continuously misrepresented, they will no longer be highlighted and represented by reliable and robust data. We can no longer generate greater understanding of the elevated risk posed by migration and to develop strategies to mitigate those risks. And those risks differ in the different migrant populations. We cannot translate and generalize assumptions from one research study or one data effort to another. They have to be systematically gained from each context, which is dynamic in time. So we need also to look at, that's my timer telling me I'm out of time. We need to also look at making national migration laws inclusive and remove discriminatory provisions in laws, and look at gender and disability mainstreaming in programs and policies. What is meant by that? We need to make sure that persons and women with disabilities enjoy liberty of movement within and across borders, and choose their own nationality and residence on equal basis, make the migration legal framework non-discriminatory by adopting the UNCRPD and other treaties, and ensure that migration laws practices are inclusive and uphold the rights of persons with disabilities, removing the laws that are that present barriers, regulations, and customs, as well as attitudes and stereotypes, and the notion of providing heterogeneity into the basis of migrant populations, women and people with disabilities. We need to involve people in participatory and representative governance, in decision-making and in monitoring, and ensure that women victims of abuse and harmful practices are provided with the required services without delay immediately, so that they can enjoy equal access to public services, as well as opportunity and protective mechanisms. So how aware are we of those challenges? If we need data, that's one point, but we also need to raise awareness of these issues, especially around migration, personnel and frontline workers. Are they attuned to these issues? So capacity building and promoting inclusive and accessible policies and programs are essential to ensure that, that migrant women and those with disabilities are represented and are no longer an invisible group, and are forced to leave their countries and become even more disadvantaged in the migrant, as migrants in their destination countries. Apart from the challenges to survive, migrant women with disabilities and in general face these particular barriers that we've noted earlier. And there are some specific that need to be considered as well. So finally, I would like to just make sure that local and city governments address the migration situation by providing a comprehensive framework that is in line with the CRPD, which enshrines a specific provision concerning situations of risk, as well as humanitarian and protection emergencies under the Cities for All framework with the 6 principles. There is a dire need to advocate for the inclusion across all pertinent programs and services, strengthening the leadership and participation of organization of women and women with disabilities across the policy formulation pathway, development action, humanitarian intervention, informing and influencing resilient-based approaches to and providing accountability to women across the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Willis, and for your thoughts and to Word Enable. I mean, we're very thankful and privileged of like the partnership that we have as UN Habitat with your organization. And I mean, I cannot agree more with you with like all your points. I think that you're right. I mean, this session is particularly focusing on the vulnerability of women migrants, but it's also like touching at the intersection of like many issues and challenges. And definitely, I think that your conclusions and comments are ringing a bell for many of us. So thank you very much for that. I think that we are a bit out of time, so I'm giving back the floor to the organizer and to my colleague from ICMPD, Daniela, for the concluding remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Good. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizer and all the participants for having me here. It has been a great pleasure. It's true that even if the City to City and the Euromed Migration for the program that I have the pleasure to manage are hosted in the same office, we do not often take the opportunity to participate to each other events. I have to say that in this sense, the pandemic offered an opportunity, since like travel is reduced and online meetings are the new reality, allowing us to exchange more. Why am I here? So basically what we would like to do in ICMPD is to try to respond to some of the challenges that have also been identified today while speaking about gender mainstreaming, gender and migration, and local communities, which is to bring together, or at least create more opportunities to bridge the gap among the local governments and the challenges the local governments face, with reference also to national policies and national policy formulation. As some of you may be aware, the Euromed migration is a little bit the sister project of the MC2CM, the big sister, as Lamin likes to say, because we basically share the same values and approach in improving, let's say, our stakeholders' capacities in terms of migration governance. But while the city-to-city operates at local level, the Euromed migration operates at national level. So here there is really an opportunity to create a more conducive environment to share priorities, ideas in several sectors. And I think that ensuring the gender mainstreaming into migration policy development is even a more pressing priority now than ever, as has been highlighted by the discussions today. I would like to also announce, to take this opportunity to announce that the Euromed migration will launch a new phase in a few months, where gender and migration and mainstreaming gender into migration policy will be, let's say, main priority from our horizontal priorities. And we will make sure to pass the messages that have been highlighted today, as well as the practices that have been outlined. I was very happy to be here and listen to first-hand experiences from cities such as Sus, Turin, and even São Paulo. And I think that we as the Euromed can say that we will make an effort to make sure that those practices are, let's say, presented, and that the local, let's say, the local initiatives that somehow are even more advanced than national policies and the national practices can be visible and heard also from at the level of national governments and regional dynamics. So thank you very much, and I hope to have the opportunity to participate to one of your meetings again, and I would like to congratulate this very vibrant working group.
I think I now have to take the floor, right, Fatima? No, I thought someone was going to introduce me, but that's okay. You know, I am Emilia Saiz, and I was with you at the beginning of this exchange. I couldn't be with you during the breakouts, but I have heard the outcomes. I don't want to repeat what you have been working on and what most of you have been saying about the relevance of this topic, but I want to bring in a little bit of a new angle that I haven't heard and that I haven't seen in the exercise of the mapping. I think it's really good that we all agree that paying a special attention to women's needs is very critical, and so including the gender equality angle and empowerment of women in our migration work is critical to actually advance this agenda, but also the development agenda. However, I think if we want to be successful in developing more tailor-made policies for women migrants, and at the end of the day, I think that the local governments, this is what they need to deal with, how to integrate them in service provision, how to make sure that that their needs are covered. We will need to understand better what we are facing, and there are many misconceptions. The last 25 years of research around this topic have failed to explain the experiences of women in migration. There is very little research about this. And if that is the case, then you don't know what you are facing. In fact, for a very long time, and I should have thought about this before the session, but many of us think that the majority of the migrants are men, that when we think about women for a very long time, and traditionally we have thought about family reunions, and we have in our mind also a woman that is looking for more opportunities. Now, the reality of very recent research show us that first of all, the majority of the women nowadays are the ones that are migrating. That is not the case in sub-Saharan Africa, that most of the refugees are women, that women look for jobs mainly in West Asia. So you see, there is a whole disaggregated planet about this. And I think our work together will need to address these issues as well, so that we can then strengthen those capacities that you have been claiming we all miss, and claim those competencies that it is true we don't have. I acknowledge that in the exercise that we have done, there is a very positive atmosphere about opportunities and challenges actually being one and the same. You can look at the challenges also as opportunities, and in fact, the situation of women migrants can also open up the eyes for a lot of renewed stimulus in many countries, because they are resilient, they are creative, and they bring children to this world, which we really need. So yes, we need to work on those, but I think we'll also need to invest a little bit, and this is the call to the partners in this project. We will need to invest a little bit to understand better and to map better what the reality is of women in migration. And I think the examples that have been provided by the cities that were here were very, very useful. I really like the approach of ensuring that is not about making sure that they can survive economically, but it is about making sure that they experience our territories and our cities and the services like we all do, right? So I hope that the values around the right to the city will continue to guide our work. Fatima has assured me that you will be receiving a report rather soon, and that report will need to start defining some path forward for this work together. I'm really excited about this work, and I hope it can link up with the work that UCLG Women does and all of the other work that we are doing with different partners on this area. It has been a very, very interesting experience. Congratulations, teams, for the webinar, and thank you very much. UCLG is committed to continuing this work, and I really thank everybody for participating. Fatima, the last word from you. Do you need us to do anything else?
Well, thank you very much, Emilia, first of all. And yeah, what I need you to do is to stay tuned, to keep participating, to of course forgive us for not having enough time never to tackle all the issues we want. It would have been a real pleasure to have more time to listen to everyone, but it was also a real pleasure to have so many profiles from so many different realities wanting to engage this conversation. And with this, and with a warm thanks to all the team, colleagues from ICMPD, Lamin, Fatima, Madeleine, Eva, but also colleagues at UCLG, starting by Prati, Jaume, Amanda, Juan Carlos, and so on and so forth, because we are a lot of people.
You're forgetting people for sure, so just include everybody.
Communication and everyone else that helped to this, and of course to all the participants that took more time than we asked to stay with us till the end. Thanks a lot, and stay tuned.
Thank you very much. See you, colleagues. Stay healthy. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
See you, Lamin. Take care. Ciao. Au revoir.
Ciao.
Yeah, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.